Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Ad Astra Kansas Money Talks podcast. I'm Joe Blubaugh, joined by Mark Johnson and Bob Schwartz of Schwartz Investment Partners. They have offices in Silver Lake, Kansas, as well as Victoria, Kansas, and you can find out more about the things that they do at schwartzinvestmentpartners.com. If you're watching us on Facebook or listening to us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, we'd love it if you give us a thumbs up, subscribe, give us a review, do all those things. We'd really appreciate it. It definitely helps other people find the podcast. So thank you for that. And today we have a very Kansas specific topics. If you've watched us before, you know sometimes we talk about just money in general, and sometimes we focus on the state of Kansas where we live. And today is definitely about the state. We're going to talk a little bit about why Kansas isn't growing. And not really from a financial standpoint. We're going to talk finances as part of this, but we're talking about population. Why is Kansas population not growing? Mark, as we kind of start this off, you would think, okay, if we're not growing, maybe it does have something to do with finances, but our economy is actually in pretty good shape.
Yeah, and that's really where this comes from, is looking at Kansas over, the last 5 years. Really, we've had really solid economic production. A lot of large corporations have moved in. Have these major factories, the Panasonic plant, MBAF in Manhattan. These new businesses that are providing jobs and opportunities, and there's been a lot of new opportunities in our state, along with what we already have going well, which is a strong manufacturing, agriculture, aviation economy that we've already kind of have rolling.
Right. But it doesn't seem to be bringing large numbers of people to the state. And that kind of brings us to the question, if we have such a strong economy, why are we not seeing more people come into the state? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find my number that I wrote down. I think our population growth at like 1.2 or 1.7%. And you're like, okay, well, we are growing. It's not in the negative. But if you look around all of our border states, we are by far the slowest growing state around. So, okay, we're making a lot of money. We're adding new jobs. We have new opportunities. Why aren't we growing? But the biggest thing comes down to it is people are leaving their small western Kansas, central Kansas, wherever it is. Eastern Kansas, small towns.
Yeah.
And they are moving away to find new jobs in these, larger cities. And a lot of times that's not coming in Kansas.
So, Bob, I'll turn to you because with your background here, and I know that you work with a lot of ag producers across the region, are you seeing the farms and the families that run those farms start to dwindle a little bit?
I just read in the past few days that I believe there's 3,700 less family farms in Kansas this year than there was just 2 years ago. So, yeah, I think that's got a lot to do to it. First of all, it's going to take a while to reverse something that's been going on for a long time. And where I became aware of this was did a marathon in 1995, 96 down in Dallas. So I'm down there, and it's like the first week in December, and K-State's got a huge football game. I can't remember anything more about it. But I'm down there, and the hotel I'm staying at says Kansas State Watch Party. And I thought, it'll be great. There'll be 5 or 6 people there, and I'm going to go down there and watch in the restaurant bar. They had the game on the night before. So I go down there, and there must have been 600 people there. And so I'm talking to K-State graduates, and they're all young people, and going, what brought you down here? Oh, this is where all the jobs are. Everybody graduating is coming down to Dallas, or they're going to Kansas City. So I started paying attention to it. And basically, we Kansans as parents want our children to do better, go to college, get an education. Well, how are you going to get them back on the farm when they've, like the old song said? And so we've had that educational a movement away. Agriculture in that same period of time has become very corporate. So it is changing and becoming much more of a needing a college education. But instead of needing 5 sons back on the farm, they need one.
Well, and that's something that's always really fascinated me is just demographics in general. And I've studied it a little bit, and one of the things that we see really across the world, but it's very in a just looking at Kansas, it definitely applies as well, is you just don't need as many kids anymore. It used to be you needed, lots of kids because they were
production.
free labor.
Yeah.
Free labor on your farm. And as more and more people moved to bigger cities and away from rural areas, well, kids became more expensive. Then they became, free labor for your farm. So families just naturally, as a nation industrializes, the population gets smaller because families don't need to have as large of, as many children. And I think we're seeing that in Kansas as well. And that makes sense what you just said. As technology changed in the ag industry, instead of a little tractor with little implements behind it, you got these massive tractors that are, you literally can do things, and with genetics and all the things, you just don't need as much labor on your farms.
You can work for 2 hours and do more than you could do in 2 days just 50 years ago. So
Right.
I think another major point is you look at Kansas and Nebraska. Nebraska is the one that we're not going to talk about today in terms of growth.
Yep.
And there's several things to look at there to unpack. First of all, if I move south, weather's getting better. Even if I move to Wichita from Topeka, a little bit milder climate. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Dallas. So going south has some attractiveness in that sense. And east and west, east in Missouri, their tax base is much better, friendlier tax base for corporations than Kansas is. Colorado, the same. And plus, Colorado has recreation.
Yeah, lots of tourism.
Much more recreational things to attract somebody. We can't say come to the mountains.
Right.
So you look at all those things, and that's our disadvantage. What do we need to do as a state to reverse that? And I think some state income tax, some corporate, some of that would be a starting place.
And I think before we move into that part, one thing I'll also mention is you mentioned our aviation background. Kansas, ironically, became this huge hub for aviation. We still are, especially down in the Wichita area. But we've always kind of produced things. We produce avionic, the airplanes and stuff. We produce farms. We produce cattle. We've always been a production hub. We don't have a lot of the technology sector. And if you think about technology right now with AI and all the things that are going on there, we don't have a lot of that in Kansas. And that would probably explain why we don't have a large influx of population coming in as well.
Yeah, we're not attracting those new college grads that are graduating in computer science or blah this and that are all going to California or the East Coast. But Kansas, like we've talked about, Kansas has things that can attract young people if you're willing to take advantage of it. There's so many opportunities, like we've talked about, where you can live anywhere and work now. There's so many you can work for a tech company in California and Kansas.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. That's becoming more and more popular, and so I feel like at some point there are going to be people that take advantage of Kansas's low cost of living, and people are going to keep moving out here and want to own a piece of land and want to have their own piece of property, and they're going to work from home and try to be able to hopefully take advantage of our rural opportunity zones that we have here in Kansas, which I don't think enough people do take advantage of.
Yeah.
And I think that young people, there's not a better place. There are places as good, but I don't know of a better place to raise children than the state of Kansas. I'm sure Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, I'm sure they're excellent also, but I don't think they're any better than us. You hear that across the board about what a great place, what great employees Kansas kids make.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
'cause
absolutely.
They're
One of the areas we've already touched on it is the decline of the rural areas. And if you're not a Kansan and you're listening to this, you're not really familiar with Kansas geography, you know, we're a big state. It's geographically we're a decent sized state. We're broken into 105 counties. For the most part, these counties are all about the same size geographically. But we actually have some Kansas counties out west, especially. I'm
you went
blanking.
to high school in one of them.
Well, yeah, Gove
County.
County, yes, is we're definitely one of the smallest counties, but we have counties that have less than 1,500 people that live in them. And, you know, we have other counties like Sedgwick County, which is Wichita, that probably have 400,000 people in them. So we have rural areas, and those areas are shrinking, and they have been for decades. It's not like this is a new phenomenon. And there's lots of reasons for that. The most obvious one is what we already talked about, the agricultural moves and the smaller families.
The other thing with the rural population decline that's going to come into effect in the next 10 years, and when I read the article that prompted this discussion today, was that here in the next 10 years, we are going to hit a point, especially in these rural areas, where deaths outpace births in the entire state, but even more rapidly in the declining areas already. And that's going to create a pretty large issue.
Well, and once again, something that just absolutely fascinates me, the demographics piece of that is, you know, we, to be a nation, or in this case, a state that has a healthy population, you want that pyramid. You want your youngest generation to be the largest, and, you know, as you get older, you're a pyramid. You know, in Western Kansas, that is not the case. It is just the opposite. You know, they're very much an aging population, and as a country, we're pretty lucky in the fact that we're kind of square. You know, we're not really a pyramid. We do have a larger, you know, the baby boomers that are now in retirement. They are the largest generation, but it's not so out of whack. It's not like China, where it is literally an inverted pyramid. But what you're seeing in some of those nations like China is also what we're seeing in some of those smaller counties in the rural parts of the state, where it's very much an aging population.
Yeah.
I think something that if we as a state could make people maybe have some incentives for. I go through these small communities, and because of something called Zillow, you know, you can drive through Onega, Kansas, and there's a house for sale. You can look up and see what it's selling for. The housing market, the difference between the housing market in Johnson County, Sedgwick County, Kansas, and Gove County, or Potawatomi. I mean, Potawatomi County is kind of hot because Manhattan's growing into it. But you get some of those counties, you can buy homes for nothing compared to what they go for in the cities. But we need to make it attractive. We need to make people want to move there. And how do we do that? I don't have the answer.
Right.
But probably some tax incentives, some educational incentives for kids. And
I look at, you know, we talk about, hey, why don't you come here? You can live cheaply, you can work wherever, you know, remotely. But who's taking away those jobs right now? I feel like Texas, Tennessee, some of these states that, guess what, have favorable tax laws.
hey, I
Or,
moved
you know,
to Texas and not pay a dime's tax, state income tax.
Yeah. So if you're going to go, hey, you can live pretty cheaply in parts of Texas. You can live, you know, in some of these other states, you can do the same thing. You live pretty cheaply somewhere else. But I don't know.
Amarillo, Texas is exploding the last 10 years. Tech.
Or anybody that's like a digital media person that isn't tied down to one place. Where are they going to go? You know, like.
Well, I still think that part of the issue that we have in Kansas, you touched on the fact there's no greater place to raise a kid. I agree with that. I've been all over the world in the military. I mean, all over the world, and I can't wait to get back to Kansas. This is
back home.
Yeah, this is a great place to live, but I'll put the big but there. You know, sometimes our spring is on a Tuesday. You know, winter, 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 summer, and literally our spring was a Tuesday, you know, and that's a challenge we have with Kansas. We do kind of get the climate is last year was wonderful. We had a huge spring. I mean, it lasted months, and the fall was great as well. But sometimes we don't get that. So the winters are challenging here, or they can be, and the summers can be brutal here, or they can be. And I don't think that does us any favors as well.
Absolutely. And another point there that you made me think of is my son has a friend. I have a son that lives south of Kansas City, about 50, 60 miles. And he moved to Kansas from either LA or San Diego. And he was 20 minutes from work in San Diego. He's like 5 miles away from his work. It took him 20, 25 minutes to get there. I'm sorry. He was about 20 miles from work. Now he's like 60 miles from work in Kansas City. He gets to work twice as fast in Kansas City as he did in San Diego or LA because of traffic patterns. So people need to. I don't think we sell that enough. That you can live out where housing is 30% of the expense that it is in the city. And yeah, you're going to spend money driving to and from work, but you're going to, you're going to get there faster, and you buy the right kind of vehicle. It's not going to break you to drive 50 miles, 100 miles a day.
But I will say that is the one area where Kansas is experiencing, exponential growth. Is that area around Kansas City?
Right.
That whole Wyandotte County, the whatever south of Kansas City as well, where people are starting to really enjoy, all that's being created there. So
that area you just talked about, an hour south of Kansas City, Lynn County, I assume is what you're. Have you ever been there in the fall? Oh my goodness, you want to talk about gorgeous.
I lived there for 8 years.
Just there, we have beautiful parts of our state. We really do.
But fall's like one day.
Yeah, it can be. That's for sure.
all leaves are gone one day. Sorry, bye. I froze.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we do kind of, we show that it like snowed last week, and now there's possible tornadoes today.
Well, sun's coming in on you at 60 degrees already at 8 o'clock in the morning.
It's supposed to be 40 degrees by the time we're like at 5 o'clock tonight. Yeah, it's not a good combo here in Kansas.
No. It's, we do. It's early March when we're recording this, and it's kind of early for storm weather. We had a storm roll through last night, and we're really supposed to get storms tonight. And they said the warmer it gets today, the more strong the storms will be tonight. So, and it's supposed to be pretty.
None of us wore a coat in here today.
No,
nope.
It's supposed to be pretty nice today. So,
I want to bring up Amarillo. If you've ever been to Amarillo, you would not live there. Okay? I mean, I don't know how somebody picked to start a community there. I mean, the wind never stops. When it's 100 here, it's 106. When it's 0 here, it's -5 down there. Yet they're growing like that because of a tax base that's friendly and their business. Had a friend in East Texas that started a business. They got a revenue bond that the city gave to them that they paid back with no interest. The city paid the interest. They had 135 employees.
Wow.
Yeah, the city paid the interest on the revenue. They had to pay back the revenue bond, but the city paid the interest. You ever heard a city doing that? I haven't.
And that's a whole nother discussion. But we got a little bit of time today, so let's dive into that because we live. Silver Lake is a tiny town, and we've talked about it before. I'm a city councilman here in our town, and as I sit here and think about how would we attract businesses to our little town, and it's like, okay, we could do that. We could give, whether it be low interest, we help with a bond, or we give a tax exemption, or there are ways to do it, but there's always the flip side. And the flip side is, are going to be people that are like, why do I have to pay my property taxes when you're giving them an exemption?
Oh, amen.
And it's really, you have to message that well, and you really have to have your everything lined up and your data correct and ready to go to explain that by bringing this business in, yes, we're not charging that kind of tax, but we are getting extra revenue over here that more than offsets it.
And the key thing we can't do here is if we had a company come in that had 60 employees, it'd be a game changer. If 30 families moved into Silver Lake for those 60 jobs.
We don't have 30
Right.
houses.
But we don't have 30 houses. Secondly, they're going to come from 5 miles down the road.
Right.
And for instance, St. Mary's has a company that probably employs 200.
Yeah.
Easily,
But-
if not more.
How many of them made St. Mary's bigger? Not very
Well,
many.
Bellevue is even a better example of that.
Yeah. Because everybody drives in.
Yeah.
And what would help Kansas is okay for communities like Silver Lake, and we're unusual, but there needs to be that type of situation where it's Shawnee County talking about doing it. Because then if you bring in 30 jobs or 100 jobs, and Silver Lake's participating this much, but three families, 3 people get jobs in there, and that's bringing income base back to Silver Lake. It's good.
Yeah.
But we can't. Yeah, you can't sit there as a city councilman and go, yeah, we're gonna give them a 10-year tax abatement.
Right.
And
It's very difficult to do that. We just did an episode a month or so ago on the Chiefs moving to Kansas.
Yeah.
And, that's exactly the conversation right there on a bigger level with, a lot of people are saying Kansas gave away the farm.
oh, look how that's aging. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, yes, Kansas gave up a lot up front. Maybe they gave up too much. That's debatable. I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but you can't deny the amount of money that's going to bring to the state. Now, there's a bigger argument. We moved from one side of the state line in Missouri into the other side. I mean, do we really need to be competing with our neighbor states like that? That's a whole other argument. But I will say that, and it's kind of one of the things that we've kind of touched on, but another area why we have a lack of population growth is we are competing with our neighbor states. Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned it, Texas especially. We have so many people leaving here to go to Texas or Tennessee, or we are competing with other states. It's just a fact.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about my high school, all my best friends in high school. Only one lives in Kansas. The rest either live in Texas or Arizona. I mean, out of 6 of us.
Two of you live in Kansas.
Yep,
4 left.
Yeah, and 3 are in Texas. Or 4 are in Texas. One's in Arizona.
And you stayed, and probably your friends stayed because of close family ties.
Yeah, and the one was in Texas, and he moved back, and he got it because he got a job with a really great company here, and got to move back home.
Yeah.
But everybody else, they're working for large corporations in Texas. ExxonMobil, Amazon, these major companies,
Sure.
and they're going to go where
Mom and dad, they did what mom and dad wanted, got an education, are going to have a better life. Unfortunately, for about probably 2/3 of the students graduate and they leave the state.
And every one of them went to college in Kansas too. It's not like they went away and stayed away. They went to college here and moved away.
Well, and that brings us to the last thing, and it's, we hate to say this, but let's just be very upfront. We lack some things in Kansas that other states have. We're pretty blessed in Silver Lake, where we're at today, is that we can hop in our car and in an hour we can be in Kansas City. Anything we want, anything we need in Kansas City, shopping, entertainment, airport, go anywhere in the world from there. So we're pretty lucky here. But as you start to move west from here,
Start doing the math if Denver's closer.
I lived Gove County. I lived in Greenfield, the little town out there,
Halfway.
and it was almost halfway. We were Waukenee's the halfway point.
Yeah.
We were actually closer to Denver than we were to Kansas City, which growing up a football fan, that was a very confusing time. Luckily I made the right choice and started rooting for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I had a son that made the wrong one.
Yeah, but back then we were closer to Denver, so we were kind of a split between the Chiefs and the Broncos. So
Donkeys.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but I wasn't going to be rude. But anyway, my point being is, as you get out into those rural areas, you do lack the entertainment. You do lack the ability to hop in a car and 30, 45 minutes, be at the airport and able to go anywhere in the world from there. So there are challenges that some people just can't do that. It takes a special person to want to live in a very, very rural community where every person in your town, and it's going to take you an hour to get to a Walmart.
Or on the flip side of that, you don't know anybody. You don't have any family there.
Yeah.
If you're trying to convince someone to move there,
True.
there's two sides of that coin.
Yeah. There's always there's so many positives, and if you want to see the positives in Kansas, come and visit the week of sub-state and state basketball. That was absolutely the 2 weeks to come to Kansas.
Which just happens to be this week.
Yeah, happens to be right now.
Yeah, go Eagles.
So as we kind of wrap up this episode, I think that now is a great time for us to start, and I say us, not us in this room, but us as a state, to think about how do we attract people. We have had a budget surplus for many years now in our state government. They're sitting on, I think, a couple $2 billion in surplus at this point. And that would be a great place to invest it. Is can we take this money that we have and invest it in a way that brings industry and people to our state to kind of get that snowball going?
Like if I go back to my hometown, there's places where I had friends grow up where either there's nobody in the house they grew up in or the house next to them don't have anybody in them. Wouldn't it be better if we gave that house away to someone that needed it and could keep it clean and updated? Even if we gave it to them, if the house next to me was empty and just getting run down, and I couldn't afford to buy it, tear it down or fix it up, I would welcome that to happen. Now, I agree there's a downside to it. And as Kansas, we're such populists that when anybody has an idea, Chiefs coming to Kansas, well, no, it's a terrible thing. We gave away the farm. The end run, when Kansas City moves back to the Missouri in 30, 50 years, is they're going to have made billions of dollars for the state. Now, is it going to be out in western Kansas? I don't know. That's up to the legislature.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you're listening to this podcast and you don't live in Kansas, come join us. We love it here.
Yeah.
I think you would love it too. But we do appreciate you watching. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. Once again, if you would like to learn a little bit more about what these gentlemen can help you do with your finances and your retirement savings, SchwartzInvestmentPartners.com is the place to go to. We hope you all have a great week. Thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Have a great week.